watching football with my 3-year-old son, and he loves to ask what the different teams are, and he's like, and he knows I get really into it. And he's like, Baba, which side are we rooting for, right? And so is it like the Bengals or the Dolphins? And he thinks that's really fun. That like the Tiger, he loves the Lions because they're a big blue lion, right?
Oh, he's a Lions.
Yeah, so Lions against the Cowboys. He's like, how's this not fun? Vikings! There's Vikings, right? But when he was asking about the Chargers game, the Chargers were playing the Redskins.
Oh.
And I couldn't say to him, so those guys are like the lightning bolts, and the other guys are the Redskins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I knew. They got to change the name.
Yeah.
This is crazy. I can't even tell my son what they are. It's that offensive.
Yeah, that is pretty, that's pretty funny.
Eventually.
It's like, did you, just so you didn't understand? Anyways, let's have some students chime in.
Yeah.
You want to give us your feelings on the election. Have a stand up. What's your name? Where are you from?
Vaughn, Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Let's
baby.
hear it for Vaughn from Los Angeles. You go to CSUN?
Yeah.
CSUN student what year?
Second.
Second year, a sophomore. A wise fool, aren't we all?
He's texting in the middle of the interview. It's great.
I have my question.
Snapping.
Oh, so you have a question?
Yeah.
All right. My question for you is more, how do you feel about all the stuff that Trump said during the election, during the running for the election? And are you afraid of it? How do you feel about all the stuff that he said, and do you believe it?
I actually want to touch upon. Oh, could I? No,
He wants the floor.
I actually want to touch upon like the kind of immigration and that kind of sentiment on it. So, the rise in anti-immigrant sentiment, that's pretty much it's raised fear amongst our communities and things like that. It brings back memories and history. So, of other leaders, of other groups, people that have rose to power, and have done much worse, such as the Young Turks. So, which is
very,
Awesome.
very interesting. I'm sure it would be
Interesting.
very entertaining, but we
So
do want to
let's-
focus on the
I
election.
actually do want to quickly respond to that because I think it's an interesting concern.
Have a seat. Have a seat.
No,
So
it's
he
okay.
brought up a question. And
So
Anna's
we
gonna answer.
worked really hard on this episode and Mora Sosterra.
All right.
Okay.
So
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break.
We'll
When
take
we
a
come
quick
back,
break
we'll
and come back.
have more questions from the audience, from actual students, after we come back from this.
To be overweight, it's another thing to have someone fat shame you, and that's exactly what she did in this case. In fact,
A lot of the people that are picking on him for his weight gain aren't really lookers themselves.
Yeah.
Get off the stage, you fat fuck!
Oh, and it's the classic bullying move where you want to feel better about yourself, so you look to someone and pick on their imperfections to feel good about yourself. It's stupid.
Get off the stage, you fat fuck! You fat fuck!
Look, I think that if someone that cares about you tells you like, hey, let's get healthy together, it's not fat shaming. You know, fat shaming is pointing a finger at you and being like, you're fat.
Get off the stage, you fat fuck!
I think that this study is really fascinating because, I mean, I can relate to it big time because when I was about 4 years old, my dance instructor told me that I was overweight. And that stayed with me for the rest of my life. But you know, it does scar you and you have issues with food and eating for the rest of your life.
Get off the stage, you fat fuck! Get off!
The irony of that is earth-shattering.
So why am I showing you this? In order to prove that the Young Turks are hypocrites? No, I think everyone knows that. I just noticed a trend that people from the left, progressives, never apologize. And I have watched this time and time again. The Young Turks have made several videos where they pick on the name of the Washington Redskins, saying that it's offensive. However, every time people bring up the fact that the Young Turks was a movement in Turkey that was responsible for the creation of the Armenian genocide, and they had policies regarding immigration similar to Donald Trump, and you don't see the Young Turks changing their name or apologizing. Another example could be the BioWare developer who was responsible for making Mass Effect Andromeda, Manveer here, who was tweeting incredible racist stuff, and he never apologized for it. Another example is the lady from the New York Times that got hired and was found out tweeting some really, really racist stuff in the past, didn't apologize for it. Another example, more recently in Britain, you have a lady which advocated for people to have acid thrown in their face. Now, she says it's a joke, but she does not apologize for said joke. So I am starting to notice the trend that a lot of people who are progressives, and I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them never apologize. And the reason that I think they don't apologize is because they know the game. And this is the game that I'm talking about. Here in the West, we have a culture that is deeply rooted in Christianity. Now, I know a lot of people are atheists now and they don't believe in Christianity, but the effects of Christianity for hundreds of years in Europe have definitely affected the culture. And here in Europe, we have a culture of guilt. Guilt means that when you do something that you know is bad, you feel guilty for doing it. It's an internal emotion. And in order to get rid of the guilt, you have to apologize. And if you really mean it, if you actually mean it and you want to change, then you get redemption. So people are willing to forgive someone who apologizes with the promise that they will try to do better in the future and they will not do so again. However, if you look at other cultures, if you look at Japan, for example, cultures that are from nations which are more collectivist. Now, there's nothing wrong with being collectivist, it's just a different way of doing things. And this, when it comes to apologizing, is a perfect example. Japan doesn't believe in a guilt culture. Japan, which didn't have centuries of Christianity, believes in a shame culture. So when a person from a corporation or some family member does something bad, it reflects poorly on the corporation as a whole. It reflects poorly on the family as a whole. Because they do not put the emphasis on the person. They put the emphasis on the group. As such, when a corporation does something bad, they need someone to step forward, a person that was responsible, and he is going to make a public apology. Now, the public apology is not in order to forgive the person. It's not there in order to abolish the person of the guilt. No, it is to say that the person is untrustworthy. It will tell to the community that that person made a mistake, and because of that, he is not to be trusted. And that person is going to be passed when it comes to a promotion, might end up being fired for the mistake that he did, is going to definitely be a pariah, and he is going to carry that shame for the rest of his life. So what's the purpose of a public apology then? Well, it's to take away the shame away from the group. All right, so once a corporation, for example, in Japan is accused of doing something, the corporation will find the guy that is responsible and present him to the public and say, this is the person who is responsible for the problem. And then the person apologizes, shows that he is untrustworthy, and the company saves face by putting someone in front. In the case of social justice, the way I view it is that it shows the people, the social justice group, that it's very effective at rooting out racism. So constantly they have to prove that they are effective at doing this by getting certain people to come up and apologizing. And the apology is an admission of guilt. You can ask any lawyer, and this is usually the case, that if you have apologized, then you have admitted to have done something wrong. And because of that, then they can move on with the prosecution. So what ends up happening is that you have people who have grown up with the Christian idea of an apology. And when someone asks you for an apology, it also implies that they are willing to forgive you if you are sincere in your apology. That they are looking to give you a second chance, to offer you redemption. If only you can understand you did something bad and show it to the world. And then you work to never do it again. But in reality, that's not the case, because they are not looking for an apology for that. They are looking for you to admit that you are guilty for whatever they are accusing you, even if the accusation is ridiculous. And the moment you have apologized, you alienate everyone that could have defended you. You throw away the possibility of suing the people that are harassing you if they are slandering or libeling against you. And you also open yourself up for the prosecution. Now, I'm not saying that not apologizing is going to make the problem go away. What I am saying is that when you have the outrage mob, and in these specific scenarios, the outrage is going to increase the moment you apologize. what you need to do is to not apologize, and only apologize to people in private if you legitimately feel guilty of harming them and doing something wrong. You should never apologize to the outrage mob. Either you ignore the mob, or if you know that you have done absolutely nothing wrong, you double down on it. Because this is exactly how the progressives, the people I talked about in the beginning, play the game. Whenever they're caught doing something that, even according to their own ideology, is a problem, they will either ignore it or they will double down on it. Very rarely will they apologize. And I want to notice how this is going right now with a guy by the name of Kyle Kashuv, who was recently resided from Harvard University. So the guy applied to Harvard, he managed to get in, and eventually they found out that when he was 16 years old, 2 years ago, he said some really offensive stuff. And the guy tried his best in order to apologize, in order to make amends. He said, look, I was a stupid teenager, or I grew up since then. I'm never going to do that again. I regret my decisions. And none of it matters. He got kicked out from Harvard anyway. Now, of course, Harvard is a very prestigious university, and they can choose who they want to allow in and who they don't. But what's interesting is the way the people who are left-leaning, the people who are progressives, are treating this individual in the comment section. They do not show any type of mercy. They do not show any type of acceptance of the apology. Instead, it's like, no, he will never learn from this. He will play the victim card for the rest of his immature life. Like, there is no forgiveness into the heart of these people who claim that they are fighting against racism, fascism, or whatever. There is no statute of limitation for the transgressions that you can do. There is literally nothing you can do to change your ways. And I remember South Park and Family Guy making episodes explaining that you shouldn't apologize. I remember when Brian and Family Guy went to apologize to the mob and it didn't work. And the reason is that they're not looking for an apology. They're not interested in an apology. They want to ruin the person. And when the person apologizes, it's an admission of guilt, and then they can move over to the prosecution. And they take advantage of the Christian culture that we had in Europe, where people feel guilty and they legitimately feel the need to go out in public and say, look, I did this. I'm really sorry. I promise I won't do it again. I want to change as a human being. That's not going to work anymore when you're dealing with these types of progressives, because they will take that as an admission of guilt, and then they will hold it above your head, and whatever they want to, they can just destroy your entire career, your entire livelihood. And it's really sad that it's happening. And what I think it does is it actually radicalizes people, because this person is now going to have his name tarnished for his entire life. Like, he was in the news, people know that he said this when he was 16 years old, and he's going to have a difficult time finding a job or another place of work, which is going to get him to double down and become more radicalized. And if these people genuinely wanted to end racism, if a person legitimately apologizes and feels guilty about what they did, you can say, you know, I guess Harvard wasn't for you. Like, they are very picky on who they choose. But, you know, I hope you learned your lesson, and I hope you can move forward from now on. And, you know, you can offer the person some kind words in order to encourage him to actually try to change. And if in the future he does something bad again, then you get to be angry at them. And by the way, I generally don't even think that what he did was that bad. I mean, he was 16, right? Like, he was a teenager. Oh my God, like, do you know how many of my friends would now be out of a job if everything they said when they were 16, it would have been brought to light? And even if you go like these people who are left-leaning and anti-racist and whatnot, like, how many of them didn't smoke some pot or did something that, you know, drink alcohol when they were kids and stuff like that? Like, if you would actually have come into the public, literally everything you did when you were a teenager, none of you would have jobs anymore. All right, all of you would be on welfare, and there would be no one to pay for it because everyone would be out of a job. So, again, like, the the rules and the transgressions are so easy to be broken that a lot of people are afraid of walking on eggshells and on thermonuclear detonators. In fact, I definitely will suggest that anyone who is watching this, you need to have an official social media account that you keep it in utter pristine. Like, you don't shitpost there, you don't say anything that's offensive, you don't say anything that is even remotely in a gray area. Alright, and that should be like your official social media presence, so that when you get hired and when an employer asks you for your social media presence, you show them that. Alright? And then you can have another account where you act normally and you talk with your friends that are gamers and you get to have banter and whatnot. Because this is where the world is going towards. You know, things that someone said 2 or 3 years ago can now come to bite them in the ass, and they can end up losing job opportunities. There was another guy at another university who they looked at his social media presence and found out that he watches Alex Jones, and because of that, they declined him. So the guy is now suing the university. It's just mind-boggling insane. But anyway, do let me know what you think. Looking forward to the comment section. And if you like my channel, stay tuned because I got more stuff coming up.